Here's literally everything you need to know about drawing and painting eyes. In this video, I'm going to cover the visible anatomical components of the eye, how they are often stylized, how expressions affect those features, how to sketch and construct different eye shapes, and finally, how to shade and paint them with depth and sparkle. Timestamps are listed below for your convenience. Our balls? Oh my god. Our eyes are made up of many different components, but before we break those down, let's talk about the balls themselves. The oculus uterque is first and foremost constantly lubricated. The consistency is somewhat akin to an exceptionally tough grape, and apparently they can be popped. No, go on. Eat your dinner. I'm sure you've heard this before, but the whites of the eyes are a lie. They're actually any color you want them to be, as long as they're extremely close to white. You will need one pass of soft shading around the outer edges to emphasize form, and a secondary shadow placed according to the light source. Typically, this is cast by the lashes. The blur filter in Clip Studio Paint is perfect for this. Just draw in your shadow with the G pen and go to blur or blur strong under filters. This softens the shadow without losing the precision of using a sharp brush. The soft shadows on the outer edges will help to convey the gradual curve seen on spherical objects, and the shadow on the top helps create the illusion that the lashes are protruding outwards. I like to alpha lock my shadow layer and add in some more saturated colors at the edges. The color greatly depends on the lighting scenario and the local value of the object I am shading, but I typically stay within warmer tones. Since oculars have a lubricated surface, sharp highlights take a front seat in the overall impact of your rendering. You definitely don't need a full range of values on the sclera. Keep it generally low contrast in the upper left sect of your color wheel. Water and anything affected by it is reflective. The colors in the skin and hair often appear as bounce light within ocular shadows. Sometimes objects are visible within highlights. If you're including any reflected objects, make sure to simplify them. I do not recommend spending 6 hours rendering a tiny human less than a single centimeter wide. A lot of anime styles love to draw attention to the irises with copious highlights. I personally love excessively shiny anime eyes, but remember that highlights are not limited to the iris. This translucent layer on top of the iris is called the cornea. This is where the highlights are. The iris is actually a comparatively flat disc underneath it. The streaks in the iris are straight, while the highlights curve around the surface like a globe. I like to add extra highlights over the line separating the iris from the sclera just to emphasize that they are flushed together. You don't want the iris to look like a separate disc on top of the eye. You want them to merge seamlessly into one structure. Oftentimes, the iris is deemed the most beautiful part of the eye. Therefore, many artists will avoid obscuring it too much with highlights. They are often placed to the side for this reason. Remember, too much of anything can be bad. The point of sharp highlights is the stark contrast with the softer shading underneath. If the balance between hard and soft edges is reinstated, the impact is lost. So, avoid getting too lost in the sauce. The iris can vary in value, hue, and patterning. Some people have nearly black eyes where the pupil is barely visible, and some of us are Gojo Satoru. The darker the iris, the less contrast, making them appear more uniform. A small bit of gradation should do the trick. Lighter eyes show these fibers stemming out from the center with a darker ring on the outside. Focus on detailing the areas within the light, as shadows such as the ones created by the lashes will obscure them from view. Many styles totally forget about these fibers, opting for a far less realistic approach. Eyes are a very flexible part of the face, so take advantage of this to create your own stylistic effects. In my style, I like my eyes to look like oil bubbles under a plastic film. In real life, irises are almost perfectly circular. In anime, their shape can be, and most often are, stylized into ovals. This is typically to accommodate for the drastic size increase. It allows the eyes to remain proportionate with the face while not becoming completely overtaken by the iris. The pupil is a hole in the center of the iris. It dilates according to the amount of light present in the environment. I had an extremely stupid thought while writing this script. I thought, lol, does the hole lead to your brain? As if the cornea left to buy milk or something. I came across a Quora page with a question asking how far you could pass a needle through the pupil without causing any harm, and everyone was like, you're a sick bitch. So anyways, it's solid black. You can't see in there, but as previously mentioned, there is a clear surface above the hole. So maybe don't eternally blind yourself? Sometimes the pupil is stylized completely out of existence. Most oftenly, the pupil is hinted at with a darker version of the iris color and or just amalgamated into the shadows, never to be separated. Alternatively, you can shade it like a circular box with visible walls and a black center. I try to add variation wherever I can, so I just add a gradient and call it a day. With all of that out of the way, let's talk about everything else. The space above the upper lash line and below the eyebrows can be described as double or monolids. Double eyelids are most commonly represented by a single line above the eye. This line represents a crease within which light cannot reach. Double eyelids can also be hooded, meaning the skin above the eyelid covers most of it like a hood. This little area looks thinner as a result. Monolids lack the appearance of a crease and are most commonly found in people of East Asian descent, although according to clevelandclinic.com, only about 50% of East Asians have monolids. Apparently some people think they can't have double eyelids naturally, but they most certainly can. Anyways, this appearance is caused by the epicanthal fold, which is a skin fold that covers the inner corner of the eye. Whatever the shape, the eyelids curve around the eyeballs underneath them. Underneath the lash line, there's the waterline. The waterline is the pink fleshy bits that sit against your eyes. Existing on both the upper and lower lids, it sits flat facing downwards on the upper eyelid and upwards on the lower eyelid. Emphasizing these will give the lids a nice sense of thickness. Given their name, they are thoroughly lubricated, which means highlights are necessary. Just like the upper lids, the lower lids also follow the curve of the eyeball. In lighter skin tones, there's often a bit of subtle pinkness under the waterline. Sometimes the lid will form a small cup, and sometimes it's fuller like this. This is most commonly referred to as aegyeosong, which is allegedly Korean for cute skin. It's often emphasized in East Asian makeup styles such as Doyen and K-beauty. The skin surrounding the eye tends to be a bit oily, so once again, highlights here are important. Pretty simple. This is just the bit of skin between the eyebrows and the upper eyelids. The only notable thing about it is its ability to help you convey emotions through the distance between the eyes and the eyebrows, as well as the direction of the slant. I'll talk about expressions later, but for now, I'll just say that they sit far closer to the eye than you'd think. Tear ducts are little rounded less than signs at the inner corners of the eyes. I'm sure you've noticed a lot of anime love to just pretend these don't exist. Maybe it's because of the aforementioned epicanthal fold, or maybe they're just considered unimportant in terms of simplification. Regardless, they're just little openings with some fleshy pink stuff in them. The inside edge of the tear duct curves inwards. I like to think of it like half of a tube. As I mentioned earlier, gradual curves call for soft, gradual shadows. This area is also wet from the solemn cries of an artist who cannot draw the other eye. It's pretty common to see people brighten up this area with highlighter just to bring extra attention to the peepers. It looks lovely in drawings as well. At the outer corners of the eyes, the folds of both lids semi-gradually dissipate. Any hard shadows in this area will become soft and subtle. The lids converge, creating a sharp corner, like two overlapping layers of fabric being pulled apart. In East Asian eyes, I'm not sure if this is a continuation of the epicanthal fold or not, but oftentimes there is a bit of a continuation of the upper lid past the lower lid with a shadow underneath it. When it comes to lashes, all you need to get that 3D effect is some curved lines. The placement of these hairs is sporadic, however you can stylize them to be uniform if you wish. The hairs taper as they extend, so the end of an eyelash should be thinner than the base of it. The hairs typically curve towards the outer edges of the eye according to which side they are placed. The lower lashes are comparatively shorter, curving downwards, while the upper lashes curve upwards. Lashes in anime styles are often simplified as a thick line with some small implications of hairs. This makes drawing them easier, conveying that they're thick and full with less effort. The skin surrounding the eyes is pulled and pushed during expressions. The lower lid can be pushed upwards as a result of a big smile, and the brows furrowing out of anger or frustration will push the upper lids down and cause them to slant inwards. As previously mentioned, the distance between the upper eyelids and the eyebrows can determine the intensity of an expression. A large gap indicates surprise, and a small gap indicates anger. These contortions are often asymmetrical between the eyes. The dilation of the pupils can also help with expressions. Tiny pupils look crazed and high-strung, while huge pupils look like someone is having way too much fun. Additionally, the amount of which the iris is obscured by the eyelids can help convey relaxation versus surprise or alertness. If you can see someone's entire iris, they probably weren't expecting that. It's plausible they just finished watching Puella Magi Madoka Magica the movie, Part 3, Rebellion. If you can't see the iris at all, the missile is currently experiencing critical levels of being a sleepy little guy and needs to go to bed. In a resting position, the upper lids will cover at least 1/4 of the iris. The foundation of every eye drawing ever is shapes. Different shapes can convey different things about a character's personality. For example, Madoka's eyes were given the soft and open doe appearance. This tells the viewer that she's a sweet and innocent cutie pie. Soft curves and a more circular appearance overall gives the soft, feminine, and kind look. Homura's eyes are shaped like squares. She was introduced as a faux antagonist of sorts, so she was meant to be mysterious and vaguely intimidating. The rigidness of her eye shape gives her a more stern, serious appearance. Kyoko's eyes are triangular, which works very well with her sharp and somewhat abrasive personality. Sayaka's eyes are tall and ovular, which reminds me of her tendency to play the part of a hero, albeit a deeply emotional one. And lastly, Mommy's eyes are like Madoka's, just a bit less open. Mommy is still very feminine and kind, but she isn't as naive. She's like an older, wiser Madoka. That fact definitely sticks out to me from her design, and most importantly, her eyes. Hi! This next part got really long, so I decided to split it into a part 2. Don't worry, I uploaded both of these videos at the same time, so you can watch it here. See you there!